Hello. I don't really actually even know where to look and I can't see very well. So hopefully I'm looking at the right spot. I have my meditation pillow out and I'm just gonna kind of free flow and channel. So I have, I've been asking my guides to help me understand and help people understand what it is that we're learning right now and why we're learning it. And then also practical tips um, for bringing kind of the more esoteric up in the air things into or ideas, I guess, into concrete practices and understandings that we can apply to our lives. Because sometimes, that whole idea that you can't really live your life and be spiritual at the same time, I think that it does feel real, I think for the longest time in my awakening process, I was like, well, how do I live a spiritual life when I have laundry to do and phone calls to make and bills to pay and work and kids and family and, all the things that life demands of us as human beings. And more, what I'm getting to is it's all within. And so, you know, it's not a matter of Xing things out of your life. It's a matter of applying the knowing from within you, you going within and feeling what feels right and best for you, and then applying that to your daily activities, whatever those activities are. So, what I mean by that is my meditation practice. In my meditation practice, I've done breath work, I've played singing bowls, I've played drums to help me get into a trance state. And really, what I've discovered is the things that work for me and the things that don't. Breath work, I know, works for a lot of people. For me, it feels like such an effort that I can never really just relax and get into the divine flow. For me personally, singing bowls, if I can relax while I play them, those are really nice for me to be in trance state. If I listen to somebody like Sandra Ingerman play the drums, and she has music on, I don't know if she's on Napster, but I know she's on Apple Music. But if I listen to those consistent, like shamanic drum beats, then I can get into trance state. But for me to flow the divine and for me to be in touch with my divine self, I really have to relax my body, relax my breathing, and slow down. So you can actually on these videos speed up speed up the voice if it's annoying for you. But this is my process, and this is how I can flow the divine through me. So with that in mind, what I recognize about myself is that I am somebody who I do not move quickly. So when I get ready for work in the morning, because I do need to be at school early, I have to be there by 7:30. So I give myself plenty of time in the morning to do my process and so that I'm not hurrying, because I don't do well when I'm hurrying. I get anxious and I'm not in divine flow and things are chaotic and I'm more likely to make mistakes and forget things and so on and so forth. So I guess I'm kind of called to say that I don't know if it's in the Bible, is it know thyself? So I think that is a really practical step in your bringing of your divinity into concrete physical application, I guess. And then what my guides have shared from there is that it really doesn't matter what you're doing. You know, I think, at least I'm just going to speak for me, in the past, it was all about my doingness. And I never paid attention. It never even occurred to me to, in any of my doingness, pay attention to my beingness. And it was with meditation. You know, I started meditating before I was even pregnant with my first son. So 20 plus years ago. And really, at the time, I was trying to achieve something that I felt was outside of myself. And I would be frustrated because I'm like, well, I'm not really achieving anything. Nothing's really happening. And I think that the point of meditation and the point of having a practice is to know thyself and to achieve that meditative state, whatever that state is for you. And I can't define that for anybody but me. But whatever that state feels like for you, then take that state of beingness, that feeling, and then pull it forth from you. It's not even a pulling, it's an allowing it to flow from you all the time as you're doing. And, you know, for me, if I start hunching my shoulders, or if I start holding my breath, or clenching my teeth, or, you know, I think those are the big ones for me. But if I do those things, I know that I'm not in flow. And so that's when I can reset and just pull myself back into that meditative state. Now, I don't need to go through a big process anymore to achieve that meditative state. And the only reason that I ever needed to go through any process at all was because I believed that I did. But now I can achieve that feeling. You saw, I think yesterday or the day before on the video that I posted, the first one of me channeling. I can just sort of take a deep breath in and do a quick body scan and get right back into divine flow. So that's the next step, I think, to practical application of spirituality. Also recognizing that everything is divine. I often refer to the Bible, and it is because I think the book itself is truly brilliant. I don't know if I shared this or not, but there was a time when my ex-husband's childhood friend came to stay with us, and he had stage 3 colorectal cancer, and he was being treated for the cancer. And at the time, he was staying at our house because for him to travel from, you know, where he was coming from in Washington State to be on the west side would have been too much, and he was sick, and, you know. So anyway, one morning I was meditating, and I'm not a religious person at all, but I was meditating, and it was John 11:4 came to me, and when I looked it up, it was, this illness will not end in death, but for the glory of God. And I was like, how does that even happen? How does that happen? And I think the reason it happens is because there is truth in the Bible. I think that we misinterpret. I know that we misinterpret the Bible because, and it makes sense. It's not a bad thing. It's just, it makes sense. Because when we're reading the Bible, we're reading it from the belief that we are separate. And truly, we're not separate. We're all everything. So when you read it from the understanding that we are not separate, you see where, and even as you listen to me, where you notice that I'm separating, that's okay. It's just, it's your responsibility to hold the truth of the oneness. And I would want you to pay attention to where I'm separating, not so you can edit me or correct me, because it doesn't really matter. You can if you want to, but it doesn't matter. Rather, so that you receive the transmission that I'm offering in purity. And you'll receive the Bible, the transmission of the Bible, in purity if you read it from oneness, if you take it, if you absorb it from the knowing that we are all one. And I feel like something is wanting to come through, so hang on just a second. Okay, so the idea that we need to be in a certain place in order to access our spirituality, the idea, so for example, I live in a city, and, for the longest time, I questioned that because I oftentimes felt better. My former husband and I had a beach house in Washington State, and I felt better when I would go to what we called the island, and then I would blame the city that I live in for my quote unquote bad feelings. And I'm saying quote unquote because I'm really, really, really trying to catch myself when I'm out here. Remember, the truth, the divine alignment is here. And if you I listened to Abraham Hicks for years, and when she would say, get into the vortex, what she's really talking about is get into the heart. And that's the space of neutrality. That's that center point. So I'll just apply what my guides have shared about this. So if this is the center point, and it's your alignment, it is the vortex. And what we do as humans is we loop out in an infinity, and then we loop back into the center point, we loop out and back into the center point. And when we're out here, we're in those dichotomies, I think we would call it, the extremes. Okay, so like the truth is neutrality. The lie, the extreme, actually, let's not call it a lie, because I feel like my guides are saying, let's call it the illusion. Okay, thank you. So the truth is neutrality, it's love. And that's here, that's alignment, that's the vortex. And then over here, we go into illusion. Oh, I really like that person. That person's a really good person. And yet the truth is, that person is. And then we go back out into the extreme. I really don't like that experience. That experience is wrong and it's bad and it shouldn't have happened. But then when we go back into the heart space, when we pull those extremes in, we're back in alignment, we're back in truth. And what we recognize from that space of neutrality is the experience was neither good nor bad. The person is neither good nor bad. You are not right or wrong. The truth is, it's all inherently neutral. And the reason that it's all inherently neutral is that we are here as divine beings, divine expressions of the oneness that we are. And so what we do, whether it's perceived as good or bad out in the illusion space, doesn't really matter. The truth is that it's us serving one another. We are in service to one another. And it doesn't matter if it's liked or enjoyed or if it's despised. The truth is that we are in service, and we are collectively creating the reality that we experience. And what I'm sharing with my guides is that, I don't want to take collective responsibility for atrocities. And what they're saying is, they're saying first, pull in the word atrocity and pull it into the neutral space. And I can feel some resistance in my right shoulder with that. And they're saying it's only an atrocity until you learn from it. And so what they're saying is, if you can pull in the things that perhaps you don't love or enjoy, and perceive them, or even they're saying you can ask your guides for support in helping you neutralize or bring the extremes into the heart space, into the neutral truth area. And what they're saying is some things to consider. First, remember that it's all of service, whether you like it or not. Second, remember that if you are in judgment, that's your, they're wanting me to say this is your opportunity. It's like your judgment are the weeds in your garden. And they're saying when you feel judgment, celebrate it for good or bad. And I'm wanting to skip ahead, and they're saying just finish this. So when you find yourself in judgment out here in illusion, pull it in and then root that weed out by recognizing that your judgment is always it's always something that you want to project out into the world versus accepting that you would never see it. And I'm saying this from a space of neutrality. You would never see it, you would never experience it if it didn't exist within you on some level. And they're saying now you can't collectively weed another's garden, nor should you. You're not here to weed anybody's garden but your own. But it is your obligation, your responsibility. And they're saying they don't like the word obligation because it is your promise to the divine to come and weed your garden. And they're saying it is also your promise to the divine, which is everybody and everything that you see. It is your responsibility to know that perhaps someone doesn't realize his or her garden needs to be seen in truth and perhaps weeded, but it is not your job to go into another's garden and weed it for that person. In fact, as you do so, you are not honoring the divine that said person is. And this is me. I'm always, maybe I am just a contentious person, but I'm like, what about an old person? So let's pull that in. They're saying, of course, there's nothing wrong with, they don't like the word help. They don't like it, so they're not letting me use it. So what they're saying is Julie's taking this literally, and if you have a neighbor whose garden could use attention and that neighbor is elderly or ill or otherwise unable to perform certain tasks, of course you can step over and help with, of course, permission. But when they're speaking of this proverbial garden, they're saying that whether it's your child or a relative or a good friend, it is important to allow other to weed their spiritual garden themselves. And what they're saying is when you are perceiving another from the perspective of that person needs help, again, you're out here. They're saying that's judgment. So pull in that idea, that belief. So and so needs help. And they're like, no. The truth is, we all signed up for the path that we are on. Nobody and nothing requires quote unquote help, because the very statement that another requires help is dismissing the divine that is within. And they're saying, please don't take this in a way that they're saying this is a spiritual lesson. This is a spiritual lesson. They're saying, okay, sorry, hang on. Well, it's giving away your own creative power. It's also putting upon another. It's almost like, it's not really, they're saying, again, like sorcery is kind of out here. They're saying when you pull it in, there, it's basically like stay in alignment, stay within you, knowing that everybody and everything is divine. And whatever you're observing in another, it does exist within you for the purpose of allowing you to acknowledge it and to weed it out. And in the case of helping another, perhaps it is the weed that you need to pull is the idea that another requires your help. You need to pull in truth that we all signed up for the paths that we are on. Nothing and nobody requires quote unquote help, because again, help is out here. And I think that they're reiterating this more for me than for you. Okay, so anything else? I don't want these to be too long because otherwise I feel like they're just going to get boring. So really just being in your divine flow, paying attention to how you're feeling, keeping the capital T truth. The illusion's out here, the truth is right here. It's always neutral. And staying present in each now moment. And just going with divine flow and recognizing that it's all divine. Thanks.